So the Ram Janmabhoomi donation scam investigation has been completed by the SIT. The report has been handed to the Uttar Pradesh government. The Uttar Pradesh government has sent the report to the trust in charge of the temple to take necessary action. And it appears from reports that two of the biggest names who were caught up in this controversy, Champat and Anil Mishra, who were both members of the trust, have been effectively given a clean chit because they have not been named in this report at all. The investigation has established serious problems in the way apparently donations are handled, and the 8 people who have been arrested, who are effectively people who are counting or drivers of the cars, they have been held responsible. So does it seem like the people in charge, the big guys, have been given a clean chit? That's what we're going to look at in this story. Remember, like, share, subscribe to our channel, sign up for our membership for the latest on the news. So this is what has happened. I'm going to give you a quick recap of the case so far, right? It actually exploded publicly on the 7th of June, and we have a different video in which we've actually listed out everything. Now, what happened was there was an allegation of theft of 5 to 7.5 crore rupees from temple donations that have been siphoned off. This caught the sight of the media. It got picked up. The government of Uttar Pradesh then put together a 3-member SIT almost immediately. By the 13th of June, this SIT then on the 15th of June started its investigation. It started looking at donation boxes, counting rooms, cash storage. There was a lot of questions about how the money went missing, how much money went missing, given the fact that this is arguably one of the most important temples in the country. Politically and also, from Astha, from belief, this is a really important temple. Now, preliminary SIT investigations examined the CCTV footage, and they said that there were around 70 instances of suspected theft and embezzlement between April end and June. Apparently, employees handling bundles of currency notes were putting it into their clothes, in their pockets, in their shoes, leaving it in the washrooms and then picking it up later. There was, there were problems with the actual bundles and how much money was in the bundles. It was being taken off on the way to the bank. CCTV footage was only being retained for 45 days. And there were several issues in how that whole process was being functioned. People are not wearing the correct uniforms when they were counting. There was someone who was a driver for Champat who was actually counting in the counting room, and that was not his job. So there was several employees with deposits and financial transactions that were disproportionate to their declared income and their salary. According to reports now, the SIT findings, several basic safeguards were either inadequate or simply not being followed. Personal belongings were not being checked properly. There were supervisory failures, and people without adequate qualifications were hired for sensitive cash handling operations. So they found out that people were giving jobs to their nephews, to their uncles, to their relatives to handle the cash. According to one report in the Indian Express, many of these workers had allegedly been hired on recommendations of the trust functionaries and their associates. So there was a lot that to be unpacked. And of course, the big question that everyone was asking was how much money went missing? Because remember, donations at temples happen in cash. And so no one really knows how much money went in and how much money finally wound up in the bank. And so what was the total amount that was siphoned off and by whom? We don't know. The other question that was asked, of course, was there were people being, there were people who were actually counting who had been hired based on, on reports on suggestions of trust functionaries. So how high up did this scam go? Now, when the FIR was registered by the police in Uttar Pradesh, they actually named 8 people. And these 8 people were connected in some way or the other to the donation counting operation. Investigators recovered approximately 80 lakh rupees linked to embezzlement from various people in somebody's car, in someone's home. One particular important connection was Ram Shankar Yadav, who was called Tinu. And Tinu was Champat Rai's former driver. Manish Yadav was Tinu's nephew. They were both counting money. And 6 of the, other than the 2 of them, 6 other accused were associated with outsourced cash management agency that was managing the cash. And there was a criminal case. And these 8 people were then picked up, and the SIT continued to investigate. So what has happened today? Reports tell us that the Uttar Pradesh Home Department, which is the Home Ministry of Uttar Pradesh, has given the final report to the Shri Ram Janmabhoomi Teerth Kshetra Trust. And the SIT, which was headed by Lucknow Divisional Commissioner, Range General, Inspector, the Secretary of Finance, they've handed off this report right now. The report has not been made public. So effectively, there was a problem with the trust, and the report, the SIT was constituted to actually investigate whether members of the trust had anything to do with this scam. The SIT has finished its investigation, submitted it to the Uttar Pradesh government, who has given the report to the trust itself. And the preliminary report on, which was given on the 23rd of June, made several recommendations, and now the final report has come in. And media reporting today tells us that Champat Rai has not been mentioned, Anil Mishra has not been mentioned. None of the members of the trust have been mentioned in that final report. So effectively, they were not mentioned in the FIR, they are not mentioned in the final report. That means they've been given a clean sheet. Now, this trust was actually put together after the Supreme Court judgment, you'll remember, back in November 2019, that finally settled the dispute of the Ram Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid title dispute of that land and cleared the way for a Ram temple to be constituted. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, at that point announced the formation of the trust on the floor of Parliament, February 2020. The trust has 15 members. Now, it is an institution that's handling, obviously, enormous amounts of money that were donated by devotees to build the temple. It came from all over the world. Nationwide, Nidhi Samparna Abhiyan alone apparently conducted a chanda and gave 2,000 crore rupees. The trust has reported receiving 82 crore rupees in donations between April 25 and February 26. So, what systems were being used to collect, to count, to record, to secure these donations? These are all now problems and questions that are arising. Champat Rai, very interesting, personality in this entire story, is not an official at the trust. He is actually one of the most important organizational figures for the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. He joined the Vishwa Hindu Parishad back in the 1980s, and he was part of this movement to build a Ram temple from the 1980s. He sort of was the record keeper. He was called the record keeper of Ram Lalla because he had all of the paperwork. He knew all of the details of the case, and people constantly referred to him when this case was in court. And when the trust was established in 2020, about 40 years after he started the movement, he became the general secretary. And then there were other people who were also, added to that trust. But he was really at the center of the entire project. Anil Mishra, another influential member, rose through the RSS through emergency, and he retired as a government medical officer, homeopathic medical officer in 2020, and joined the trust. He supervised sales and purchases. Now, the reason I'm bringing up these two individuals was on June 27th, they both resigned from the trust, saying that, there were allegations against them, and so they are stepping aside. But we don't know what happened to those allegations because the final report does not name either of them, effectively giving them a clean chit. And the evidence reported so far suggests that the SIT did not establish either Rai or Mishra personally stole any donations. But I want to remind you that one of the key accused in this case, Tinu, who the police and the SIT say they have evidence against, he is in jail right now, was Champat Rai's driver. And his personal driver, who wound up in the counting room counting money, and also who's hired his own nephew to count money as well. So the assumption here is that Champat Rai's driver had enough power to find his way into the counting room without supervision, to hire his own relatives into the counting room, and was stealing crores of rupees or lakhs of rupees without the knowledge of Champat Rai. Nobody in the higher up was responsible for this at all. A very important part of the story is also that the investigation is not over. The SIT's final report will now, has gone to the Uttar Pradesh government. It's effectively, the matter has reached the Supreme Court, and petitioners have sought an independent investigation. There's also a question of a CBI probe at this point. The Supreme Court has stressed that the allegations required a fair and an impartial criminal investigation and asked the Uttar Pradesh government to consider reconstituting an SIT. The court has subsequently ordered a fresh SIT headed by a senior IPS officer, and we'll have to see what happens to that logical conclusion of that case as well. But today's report effectively does two very interesting things. One, it lets Champat Rai and Anil Mishra completely off the hook. Two, it gives the final report without releasing it to the public directly back into the hands of the trust to decide what necessary action needs to be made. And the reason why this needs to be made public is because that is public money. People, devotees, donated to build the temple. They donated to for the running of the temple. They've put money in that chanda, and so they are owed accountability if someone was taking money out of that box. The average Indian needs to know where that money is going. It doesn't seem at this point whether for as long as that SIT does not make that report public, there's zero accountability on this entire process. Remember, Uttar Pradesh is heading into a state election next year. It's a really important time. It's a really important state for the BJP and for the opposition as well. This is going to turn into a flashpoint. It did seem, of course, like the Yogi Adityanath government set up the SIT almost in a hurry in order to show that, listen, we're doing the right thing. But the SIT's report at this point doesn't seem like the right thing anymore. We have not got answers to many questions. Who stole the money? Who designed the system? Who supervised it? How come it was not been noticed for so long when money was actually being stolen? Why were none of the rules being followed? And how is it that this much money got stolen, but no one higher up had any idea at all? This is, like I said, the most important temple in the country. And why were there so many gaps in its running and its system when there was so much money being handled? These are all questions that we hope the SIT would answer. But we don't know what the SIT has answered because that report has not been made public. Leave me a comment in the comment section if you believe the SIT report has actually satisfied questions that the average Indian has about the theft from the Ram Janmabhoomi donation box.